Hey everybody.
Hi everyone.
We-
January.
yes, this is the January update. And we're of course in the late part of December. You may be able to hear the wind through the trees in the background. And behind us, between us, is
Sunrise Cliffs. We're high up in the Absaroka Range, north of Yellowstone National Park, and really one of, I think, the most beautiful mountain ranges in the lower 48.
it's one of your very favorites.
Just so rugged and wild and diverse, and we've skied and hiked to get up to a pretty high elevation here, and
Yeah.
wish you a happy new year.
Yes, we do. This month we've been thinking about time.
Time.
Yes, this kind of arbitrary thing of having a new year, of having months, of having, minutes on clocks. It's very clever, but we're going to probably talk with you a little bit more with a different camera down farther in the valley. A little later.
Where we've been spending several days just communing with beauty. It's just so good for the soul.
And here, over Gary's shoulder, are our home mountains, the Bridger Range. It's amazing to be able to see them from up here, wouldn't you say?
I'd say so. Gosh, they must be, 35 miles away from here. And our home is on the far side of that range.
And we see them out the bedroom window.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So this is quite something to see them up here. Okay, we'll check in with you soon. Hey everybody.
Hi again.
By now, it is New Year's. We did say Happy January in the last one. And here we are. This is where we've been staying the past few days, in this old schoolhouse that has been renovated into a cabin. And we're so fortunate to get to have some time here.
Yes, we came down off the mountain and settled back into our little cabin and have been thinking and talking about, as Mary says, that whole concept of time, which of course is a human construct. There's not really a time out there in the universe as such.
Well, yeah, we've made it all up, and yet we can see it makes sense that humans would make up time. But one of the things that struck me this morning is that we woke up and we were ready to go out skiing again, and it was raining. And so this notion, for example, New Year's. We were talking about how it comes just long enough after the light has started coming back in the northern hemisphere that there's this reason for, things are starting anew. Let's start the new year there. It's a very northern hemisphere centric notion.
Yeah.
But that kind of marking of time, we don't generally mark in these up here, this high in the mountains. We don't think of January like this.
Not as rainy and 45 degrees. That's very odd and a little disconcerting, but we're rolling with it. But your point about time in the northern hemisphere, of course, all time anywhere in the world, the keeping of time and the invention of devices like clocks, which really aren't that old, to segment the day, are all based on the Earth spinning and the Earth revolving around the sun. That's what we're dividing, basically, the day and the night and the seasons. And we do have a penchant as humans for chopping things up and dividing them into small pieces. And
there's no real reason not to. It's pretty clever to have have the time back in the day, to watch the time, to watch how day and night behave. And if we, how it gets in the northern hemisphere, the darkness gets longer in the cold months and it's shorter in the warm months. Same in the southern hemisphere. But so how do we play with that and make sense out of it? It's everything, as you, I think, were suggesting, all this time construct comes from paying attention to the natural world and what the natural world's doing and how it changes. That northern hemisphere thing, though, is a place where it's important for us to become increasingly aware of how cleverness can also be used as dominance. as ways of controlling people and saying, yeah, we're going to call the new year and we're going to call this solstice and we're going to put Christmas on December 25th. And there's some controversy about when that event that is celebrated actually occurred. Some say June, which would be winter in the southern hemisphere. So there's ways that whoever came up with this stuff once and had the most access to getting the word out and to saying these are the new rules. This is how we're going to do it. Nonetheless, even those things come from attending to the natural world.
But I'm thinking this ultra segmentation down into hours and minutes and seconds, that can be all well and good too. But think of how much our economy absolutely depends on it. If you've got a job and you're expected to show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, then that's what you do. If you're in a factory, you've got X number of seconds or minutes assigned for each, say, assembly task. And if you're taking longer than that, there may be issues for your boss that they'll have to talk to you about. And so we really are a time crazy culture in some ways, as far as how much we use it to segment our work and our lives, our play from our work.
Yeah, and that is really so. So we moved ourselves away from the natural world with that kind of time-centered reality. Many traditional cultures and indigenous cultures, I don't know if I can say all, I'm not way back, but I wasn't raised in an indigenous culture in contemporary times. But what I have observed and what I've seen in my friends of those cultures is that they're more oriented toward event. There's event orientation and there's time orientation. So the event orientation, and all of us may have some of that in our lives where we just kind of lose track of time, is what we will often say. And we're in the event from the beginning of the event to the end of the event. But I think that's very hard for people who are deeply indoctrinated in Western ways of orienting towards time, like you were describing.
Yeah, if you said come over for dinner at sunset, I actually like that notion because it would sort of draw you out into the larger world in which the sunset is an event, but we don't tend to do that.
Yeah. And so then the other things, what does the natural world tell us about time? Well, we do know that the light there's here in the northern hemisphere, we're getting more light, and it's gradual, but it registers. And we also know that this is the time of year when, because of the light and the tilt of the planet, we get more winter. We also know that winter is behaving in different ways, in significant part because of human-caused climate change. We are 80 degrees warmer than we were this time last week.
Yeah, 80 degrees in a less than a week, actually. So that's impressive, to say the least. There is a certain reliability of the processes that gave birth to the notion of clock time. Like we've been talking about the seasons, and we can measure or watch the cycles that happen in the natural world, the dying that happens in the fall that ends up being the substrate of what gives birth to things in the spring, and of course that progression of seasons and daylight. Those are reliable things that in this sort of crazy shifting world in which we live can somehow be comforting.
Yeah, and so for the past few days, we've been spending a different kind of time than our usual days, and that's kind of what we were after. Time that is marked by sunrise and sunset, time that is filled with a different kind of beauty, not one TV screen.
Yeah, no computer
but
screens.
Instead of a wood fire to watch and see what comes forward, and
listening
books.
to a book on tape.
So
it feels like a slowing down.
And there is something, we were saying last month about what goes on, the quiet that comes forth here in the northern hemisphere in this time of year, and the slowing that is possible. So we're still feeling that, but we are captivated by how we put markers on things like a new year. And we're, of course, not the only ones. The
Mm.
Chinese New Year comes shortly after that. Um, and it is, and China's in the Northern Hemisphere also, so it's associated with this movement of light, I would guess.
Yeah, I would think that's true, and probably New Year around the world is somehow associated with that progression of light, that change of light, which takes us right back to the experience of being human in this grand, natural, of course, universe.
And then it is just fascinating to think about how this is the celebration. And this time that we've been in has historically been a time of celebrating light and return of the light in the Northern Hemisphere. And so, with that, and with this designation of the New Year's going to start when it does, um, there's still a long time, at least in climates like this, before anything shoots up with a sprout. But there's nonetheless this trust that that will happen. And it's very comforting to have this deep knowledge that the progression of seasons will continue. And not just that, the progression of trees, the progression of soils, the progression of animals, and the progression of human lives um, will continue as long as, well, human lives,
Long, long time.
we hope it will continue.
And last month we were talking about how the progress of the winter microbes in the soil is really quite robust, going on beneath our ability to perceive it and certainly to see it. And all, as Mary's suggesting, moving toward that time when once again those plants will sprout up, fed by the effects of those microbes processing different minerals and aspects of the soil and making those nutrients available. So even when it seems like, and in Montana it can seem like time has actually stopped.
Yeah.
Sometimes in January when it's cold, and it has not at all. And
Yeah.
so the trick, I think, is for us sometimes to just bring ourselves back to this is what is happening right now, and not get overly anxious about, boy, I can't wait until March or April or May until we see certain things again. And I think perhaps as we get older, there's more of an encouragement to be able to find some sort of grounding in the present moment.
Right, but don't wait. Don't wait.
Yeah, don't wait. Yes.
And the other thing is that there are signs of life changing even all through the winter. And so that's part of the slow wake as well, is to slow and look and slow and watch the progression from one week to the next. Not so much from one day to the next at this time. But yeah, that is what's fascinating to me about this whole notion of time. Yes, you can feel time passing. I can, experience that. And it's something that's happening within nature. It's not just something that's happening because clever humans put a clock on it.
Right, right. And sometimes it is fun to think what's going on out in nature that's completely beyond your perception. The grizzly bears in the den with nursing their cubs as the winter comes on until spring finally releases the whole family out into the wide world. There are lots of wonderful, secret, quiet, very life-driven things going on right now, and I like to think about those when it feels like we're stuck.
Yeah, so always drawing back. This is not new to any of you. Always drawing back to the present and seeing. One of the questions we came up early in this full ecology stuff that we may have mentioned to you, but I don't know for sure, is what would nature do? So what's going on in nature? What would nature do right now? Nature would rest. Nature is resting on the one hand, but below the surface is really generating energy and substance for expression in the springtime. And so the cycle continues. And in these days when it is so difficult for us to trust, check that one out. that one is one that you can continue to trust whether you realize it or not. You can lean into that. You can relax in that, the progression of the seasons.
Right.
So happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. So we're going to give more investigation and thought to all of this, and we hope you'll join us in our January deep dive on the 10th of January at 6 o'clock Mountain Time, where we will join together with whoever comes to gather and check out what does the natural world have to tell us about time.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
And you can always find us and connect with us, and please do at
Connect@fullyecology.com. Yeah.
And you can check us out if you haven't at www.fullyecology.com. Don't miss our podcasts, they are continuing. And also take a look at the retreats. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, we've got 2 wonderful retreats coming up around the summer solstice. So it's in one of the most beautiful places in Montana, which is saying a lot, in the Centennial Valley, in the far western edge of the Yellowstone ecosystem. One will be a full ecology workshop, and the other will have full ecology elements, but specifically designed for writers, for people who really want to take their writing to the next level. So we'll be doing a lot of kind of one-on-one and group dynamic workshopping, combined with going out into the wild areas around Centennial Valley to inspire and to ground your art.
And the full ecology one will be with the same question that we had last year, because it's still relevant. Who are you now? Who are you now with all of these things that have been unfolding over the past 3 years? Who are you now, and how does the natural world, and that natural world last year, and we have confidence that this year, the ecosystem in the Centennial Valley is filled with teachers to help answer that question.
Yeah, it's just one of the most remarkable places you'll ever see. If you love birds, if you love wildlife, if you love grand mountain scenery, that's the place.
Okay.
All right.
We'll love hearing from you. Be in touch if you have any questions, any input, any thoughts, and have a happy new year.
Indeed.
Big, good wishes for 2023. All right.
So
Bye
long.
for now.